All right, so without the ranting, ENTP versus INTJ. Now you're looking at basically the stereotypical pair of Batman versus the Joker. The Joker is, of course, the ENTP, and Batman being the ITJ type. Some may say ISTJ, but the INTJ has a plan, rather. But then you got the cave being the spider web of the SI user for ISTJ. So I'm thinking liquid second on that. Don't forget that Bruce Wayne has trauma. He has to put on another face. So that might be really tough for him to do that. Of course, don't forget those are characters, and we're talking about real people. So, again, without the ranting, this is really tough for me because I am their archangel and subconscious pair. So I'm a subconscious archangel. That sounds cool, but slightly bordering on the sacrilegious side. I am the subconscious archangel for this pair. So I'm probably the best person to just kind of tell you straightforward. INTJs are big planners. ENTPs don't really have a plan. They just kind of have a collection of ideas. And so when you have a collection of ideas and all of these things that they thought through on each of these ideas, they know their stuff, ENTPs do. And the INTJ has one thing, and both want to be masters of their craft. They are intuitive thinker types, so they are naturally not as friendly, meaning warm. ENTPs are very friendly, so you might think, but they're not warm. They're what you might consider to be a cold genius who is scattered. So again, the Joker, right? That brings us right back to Heath Ledger's version of the Joker, by the way. Or the stereotypical comics version, we should say. Because Joaquin Phoenix's Joker is an INFP type. I made a video on that anyway. This is part 2 to the previous video, but you can just jump right to this one to bypass all of my ranting. To look at more of the in-depth cognitive stack stuff, you have somebody who naturally wants to consider all of the ideas being ENTP, like I mentioned. INTJs do not have a plan B. They are NI dominant with a TE efficiency. They have backed up that plan inside itself. There is no backup of the backup. The plan has backups built into it. That is how the INTJs have that plan. Like if something happens for Batman, he's not going to go back to the Batcave that same night and just try to refigure that out. He's going to have to take care of that in the moment, which causes him to, but he already planned for that, hence his utility belt. So INTJs tend to do that. They utilize SI daemon, which is the spiderweb function of our brain to collect and store data, much like an archive, but they do so in a demonic sense. So INTJs can plan for things very well. Like when I say for things, like things that could go wrong, but they miss minute details. They miss the SE things that could happen in the present moment when those details come to fruition. So this is why Batman is just a character. So now we're talking about Batman. Some people may say ISTJ, like I mentioned, but the point is that in the moment, Batman has to rethink because the Joker is known for just throwing the randomest things at him. As Heath Ledger is infamously known for saying, I'm like a dog chasing mail trucks. I don't know what I would do if I caught it. So ENTPs have a difficult time catching something and holding on to that because they'd rather chase the mail truck. INTJs, in their mind, are already sitting inside the mail truck. They are the mailman. They're also the dog. Don't forget that they are an NE coin flip. So they need to be considering these ideas, how they can both interplay. Interplay, is that a word? Remember, I'm an ESFP, so the way I explain things is the archangel version of the ENTP and the very opposite of the INTJ. So this video, hopefully both of these two, well, I think both of these two are naturally more mature than most types are as far as developments go. And so they can sift through the things that I'm saying and create like an interpretation that makes sense. I've had INTJs say, look, I like the way that you explain things, even though we're not the same type for sure, but I totally get what you're saying. And INTJs can sift through that. And that's what I love about that, because deep down, that subconscious element is there. We communicate at a very core, fundamental, deep level, INTJs and ESFPs. So one of my best friends is INTJ, and I can spit out every little thing. And as you see me rant and stuff like that, and he goes, and he just sits there. And then when I'm done for a second to breathe, he just says, let me see if I got this right. And he just sums it right up. Boop. And it's just like, wow, he gets everything. INTJs have that, and I love that about the INTJ. Now, the ENTP, you start saying something, the ENTP is going to cut you off. And they're going to say, well, what about this, and they just keep going. I'm like, whoa, how did you have all that data stored up? Because don't forget that they are SI inferior. So they don't know how that spiderweb is connected. They like to consider many things, but because their SI spiderweb is weak, they cannot put them together and hold them like a sticky spiderweb should be. They don't do that, which creates this stereotype for ENTPs being literally crazy. Okay, so people legit think that an ENTP is either very loud and annoying to most types. They don't understand people personally to most types stereotypically because they're also FE childs and FI blind. So they don't understand their own feelings about all the ideas that they're spitting out. And they love the idea of ideas. They love the idea of abstract concepts, not tangible things. So these are the people that just love to talk and learn about theory. So when it comes down to this, and you're looking at how this has to come into a practical play, that's where somebody like me, who is a concrete user, like an SE dominant, would be considered this archangel benefactor for them. So I'm able to collect those ideas, or basically say, hey, whoa, bypass all the fluff, ENTP, stop talking. Let me do some talking because we're both EP types, we both want to talk. But I'm like, this, okay? And then I have a flame that lasts about as long as this wick for my attention span and my desire to do it. And this is how this quadrant seems to function. Now, don't forget the ISFJ, who actually plays into this, because ESFP shadows ISFJ, subconscious is INTJ. I'll put the little quadrant down here. You can see it. You can literally see it. And every pair, every type has their quadrant. Refer to it as a super buddies quadrant. I don't know the technical term. Nobody's ever told me. But if you look at it as a math equation, it makes total sense. And this, in my opinion, makes the perfect functioning, working team. So if you're an ENTJ watching this or something, you want to have your corporations just run as fluidly as possible, and you don't recognize the idea that people develop a little bit differently. So having a personality type in a quadrant like that, they may have overcompensations and undercompensations. So really there is no perfect team, but like if nobody had a personality, but just like their label of a personality, then yeah, ENTJ, go ahead and stick people in their super buddies quadrant, and then you technically have the most fluid, liquid, lucrative rather, company known to man, because, that is a flawless, perfect team. ENTPs bring in all these ideas. ESFPs will say, this is what's exciting right now, let's go for it. And they actually just, ESFPs are the flame. The ISFJs are like the wick. They kind of keep it organized enough until that flame runs out. INTJs create the rest of the candle so that wax is utilized correctly. But the ENTP can help with the ESFP bring in that candle and make it a useful thing. That's a really stupid analogy. I know that. It's almost midnight. Okay, I'm sorry. But that's how this team functions, like that. So, as you can see, they are neither present, ENTP and INTJ, the SE being strong for my type, but they don't use that function. They don't look at the details of what they're looking at. ENTPs look at the overall big pictures of what they're talking about. This is huge. ENTPs are like big, the big. INTJs look at the big one. ESFPs look at all these like tiny little things. ISFJs are the spider users. They're the black widows. The ISFJs make the spider web. So the ISFJ really is the core of this team to actually make it work. So really, if you want to know who on your team is probably the core, look at your shadow before you look at your subconscious and your archangel. That's my opinion. I'm curious how that works out mathematically. So let me know your guys' quadrant, who you feel would be the most central versus the other, auxiliary members. I've heard people's stories, so it's fascinating. Even in a family unit or working unit, I'm open to that. I love seeing what you guys have in your day-to-day lives. But this pair, INTJ and ENTP, is very much like the Batman and Joker. That is probably the best example I can think of. So bypassing their parental functions, just looking at what their dominant functions are, it makes a lot of sense. They are not feelers at all, either of them, nor are they sensor types. So what they're doing, both of them, creates a world for comic books, because there is something happening behind the thing happening, but it usually wraps up. Joker ends up in a twist because somehow he, did too many things and got caught up, and Batman saw through that and always won at the end of the day, for the most part. But that's how the superhero and villain dynamic would be. I'd be curious to see how it would be on a flipped idea, if anybody has an example of flipped version of Batman and Joker, but keeping it the same personalities, just opposite. So basically an ENTP Batman and an INTJ Joker. I'd be really curious what that would look like. So that is your stereotypical pair for part 2 here. Please give me your insights and ideas for a next part if we need it. But I hope this has been a pretty good general breakdown of a stereotype for these two and their super buddies quadrant, and how they would work well in a team scenario, as well as how you can see that they would fight each other as superhero and supervillain. Supervillain, yeah. You gotta have super for both, come on. ENTPs can be very superior. Has anybody ever seen this pair before? I'm sure it's more common than we might think.